I like to start with a story because I feel like this story gives you a little bit of insight from my point of view. So I am a retail buyer. We buy for a group, an association of over 215 different independent retailers. So I speak from the independent retailers' point of view. 70% of our business is international. I work in 7 different countries, and I'm responsible for about $100 million worth of open to buy. So I am a buyer. The point of view that I give you today is about making money. It is about what a buyer wants and what a buyer needs from an emerging designer. I teach a whole day class on how to do it right, and this is probably about just 15 minutes of the class that I'm going to try to get into it as quickly as possible. So I'm going to start with my story. So the story is of Tyler. So Tyler, we have this thing called a feasibility consultation where you come and you meet with me, and I basically tell you if you have a good idea or a bad idea, and if it's a good idea, how to develop it and get into the next stages. So Tyler walks in, and we all know a Tyler. So you know that guy that walks in, his ego walks in first, and then he walks in after? Or imagine it like this, the perfume walks in first, and then the person walks in. This was Tyler, right? So he comes into my office, big giant ego, and the first thing he starts to tell me, I'm the next Versace. I'm the next, Valentino. You've never seen anything like this. I'm so avant-garde and so edgy and so out there. You're going to be fascinated with my product. First of all, those words, edgy, avant-garde, never seen it before, scare a buyer. You know what they mean to me? Unsellable. There's a reason why I haven't seen it before. So now I sit down with him. Okay, Tyler, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your collection. He pulls out his portfolio. One of those big, ugly, what do you call it? They have them in school, that you do your portfolio. I swear to God, I have a mentally challenged niece who can draw better than he can. So now he's showing me and he's describing them, right? This is so of course it's an evening wear collection. And everything was long gowns, and it was so basic and so rudimentary. It was the one shoulder, the V-neck that drooped back. Like, there was nothing special about it. So now I'm like, I gotta humor this guy, right? He's been here 5 minutes. I already hate him. I hate the collection. How am I gonna milk a little bit more so at least I earn my money, right? So now I'm like, well, Tyler, tell me, what price point do you want to be at? Oh, they start at $3,000. All right, I told you how horrible they are, right? Okay. So now I'm like, okay, well, do you know that in the United States, there are only 70 retailers that carry that price point? No, he did not. I said, and you know what, Tyler? They don't want Tyler from Brooklyn. They want Carolina Herrera. They want Valentino and Versace. They don't want you. So now, of course, he's deflated. He's angry. He's really upset with me. You don't know what you're talking about. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. This is what I do for a living all day long. So now I'm trying to humor him a little bit more, but at this point, he huffs and puffs and storms out of my office. So I'm like, whoa, that was a big scene. That was a lot of drama early in the morning. Now I know, take the Eagle designers in the afternoon, after lunch, and my coffee. So now I'm like, how can I entice him? We're going to start drinking. I'm a good drinker. I've been drinking for a long time. And thank God he was just a one-drink Nelly, because those drinks at the CFDA Awards are not cheap. So now we have a drink, and people get drunk 2 ways. Either they're like that angry sailor that wants to start a fight, or that, hey, I love you man, right? He was the hey, I love you man. So now he's like hanging on to me. Oh, I'm sorry I called you a bitch. But I was really emotional that moment. You really, everybody tells me what a great designer I am. Everybody tells me that they want to wear my stuff. And you just called it so meanly. And I was like, yes, I understand. So now I have to hear his whole story about how he was small and his father sent him to live with his grandmother down in the South, and how he always dressed as Barbie dolls. And I'm like, come on, man. Okay, fine. We're in today's time. He is a male nurse at Lenox Hill Hospital, which is the #1 hospital for plastic surgery. This is the hospital where ladies come to get major plastic surgery, not like the little one, right? The major, the one you have to hire a nurse to go home with you. So when he's home with these ladies, right? And, it's always a special event, like a big birthday, daughter's getting married, anniversary, wherever it is, right? That they get this. He always says to them, do you really want something off the rack, or do you want something designed by me for you? And of course the answer is for you. So now I'm like, this is great, Tyler, this is great. Because now you have a name, like people actually knew his name in that circle, right? You probably have enough money to get funded because these ladies absolutely love you. Because you know what? I started seeing him in the pictures with these ladies at these events, right? So I'm like, okay. And he's a very handsome, tall, elegant black man, right? He's really, you know, the dapper one with the little bow tie, like very hipster Brooklyn, right? And he's at these events. So you have the money, you have no talent. So this is another thing too. That people tell me, well, Mercedes, what does it take to make it in this business? Is it money or is it talent? And I prove to you, Tyler, who had neither, can make it in this business because of one thing, and that's drive. Like this guy never gave up. Even when a seasoned professional is telling you your stuff is crap, he did not give up. So now, and that's good to have that self-inflated ego too, right? Because that's what kept him going. So now I'm like, listen, Tyler, now that you have this name, this branding, this money behind you, this is what we're going to do. We're going to dummy down your collection. We're going to make it in China. We're going to call David's Bridal, which has 500 stores throughout the U.S. We're going to make prom dresses for $100. This is $1 million deal. And you know what he said to me? No. No. I am happy where I am. I sell 2-3 dresses a month. I socialize with the people I want to socialize. I'm going to retire as a male nurse in a few years. I'm going to have my pension, my health insurance. I am happy. And that's the bottom line. No matter what I tell you today, how to do business, how to be successful, how to scale, how to price, how to market, how to sell, at the end of the day, this is a business. And, you know, people always say, well, there has to be balance between life and work. And, you know, for us women in the group, for raising a family, here's the truth. There is no such thing as balance. There is only integration. This is what we do. When I'm in the bathroom, I just sent a tweet from the bathroom. Did everybody get that? Mercedes at GPC. I was tweeting from the bathroom. That's integration. You know, when I wake up in the morning, when I'm here, I'm looking around, who's got this, who's wearing that, everything we do. We don't sell pencils. We don't market gasoline companies. We are fashion. And in fashion, it's all consuming. It's what we do. It has to be part of us. If not, you will not be successful in this business. So, my first question to you, do you want to be rich or do you want to be famous? Because it's very hard to be both. I want to be the guy that sells underwear to Walmart because you know that that guy lives in a really big house and nobody knows who he is. Instead of the name brand that everybody knows. So let's look at all of these different designers. John Bartlett, John Galliano, Michael Kors, Marc Jacobs. Do you know what they all have in common? Besides being this really branded name, they were all bankrupt. They were all bankrupt until they got a day job with somebody else. So design is an art, and I'm not saying that there is no art in fashion. There absolutely is. But I'm here to teach you today how to take your art and capitalize it in that moment to make money. So if we look at all the really top designers, they all have a day job with somebody else. I love Marc Jacobs' quote. When he went to work for Louis Vuitton, he said, "It only took me 20 years to be an overnight success." So if you think that you graduate from school and you're not going to intern, and you're not going to work hard and pack boxes and do all the things that you have to do, and you're just going to be a superstar, you're wrong. And my favorite example of that is Stella McCartney. Her father was a Beatle. You cannot get more money, opportunity, open doors, networking than having your father be a Beatle. So she still had to go work for Lacroix as an intern for Christian Lacroix. She still had to work under the house of Chloe before starting her own line. And where does she make all of her money now? Working for Adidas. So we all need a day job. So what is it? This is your mantra, ready? And especially for the accessory designers, who I always find that they're there making the things themselves, and our couture designers who are there sewing the gowns themselves 3 hours before the big moment. No, this is the mantra. How do I work as little as possible for the most amount of money? If you say this to yourself every single day, you will find a solution to that problem because you will learn to delegate. So I love this picture because here's the bottom line too. And I'm not going to get too much into this, but we don't sell clothing or accessories or bags or shoes or whatever it is. We sell emotion. So when you see Ralph Lauren, you see him, you think Americana, you think heritage, you think Native American Indian. Here's the punchline, ready? Have you ever seen a Native American Indian wearing Ralph Lauren? No, right? So he's selling you the fantasy. He's selling you the emotion. And this is what the designer has to create. And when you create that, the big picture is then to go into licensing agreements. So if you look at Ralph Lauren, right, he has Purple Label, the most bestow exclusive, sold in only very, very few stores around the world, right? And he goes all the way down to Chaps, which is the cheapest part of his collection that he sells to Walmart. And you could also buy bed sheets and paint and furniture and pillowcases. Those are all licensing agreements. And as a brand, as an emotional connection, this is what you should aspire to grow to being a lifestyle. So how we're going to get started. I personally think that you should start with the boutiques. The boutiques, you know, and in the US, and I can speak very with a lot of more detail about this later, but there are 70,000 boutiques in the US. So I would start with them. They're also the most forgiving. They're the ones that are willing to take a chance. They're the ones that pay with a credit card before you ship them. So these are all important things, especially when we're talking about cash flow. The next step would be specialty chains. That means that they have more than 3 stores, but of the same brand. Then you're going to go into the department stores, and then you're going to have your own retail store. And I find that almost every single designer that I have worked with, at some point or another, becomes their own retailer. So this is the hard part. I know that a lot of designers struggle to come up with a new collection. They struggle to get production. They struggle to come up with a supply chain that's in place. But honestly, once that's all positioned, the hardest thing is to make the sales. You have to make, so this is the first homework assignment that I'm going to give you today. Your first homework assignment is you need to make a list of 100 retailers you want to be in. So, and it's funny because one of my favorite questions, and I see a lot of you taking pictures. If you give me your business cards at the end, and I'm going to stick around for a little bit, I'll be more than happy to send you these slides. And that way we can stay in touch too. But you have to be able, and don't make a generic list. Like somebody will say to me, I want to sell Ann Taylor. You cannot sell Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor only sells Ann Taylor. Like, it's a private label. Like, I want you to do your homework. I want you to look. And here's the thing. Back in the day, right, and I am dating myself, I wanted to sell Chicago. I had to get on an airplane, go to Chicago, walk street by street, collect business cards, right, of all the businesses, write them a letter of introduction. Who's written a letter? I can't even send Christmas cards out, right? So we used to send them a letter of introduction. Then we followed with a phone call. Now we could do all of that virtually. So when people, you know, the question in the last panel that they had is, should you start locally and then grow internationally? I don't think that that's a question anymore because it's such a small world. You start globally. And that's the mindset that I want you to have. So now I must quote from my favorite movie, Wall Street. And if anybody knows anything about me, I studied to be an economist. I fell accidentally into this business. And it was a temporary job that I had taken with my uncle that has now been a 25-year career. So temporarily, I was thinking I was going to dominate Wall Street. I was going to be Michael Milken. And my favorite line from that movie is this: you can never be like me because you cannot think like me. This is Greco talking to his protege, right? You want to fly in first class and I own the plane. Own the plane. It's the same amount of trouble. And I don't care when people say, well, I'm going to start small. You can start small, but I do not give you the permission to think small. And that's a big difference. So once we make our list of retailers, we're going to reach them. We're going to cyberly stalk them, right? We're going to like them on Facebook. Everything that they do, you're going to start liking, because now they're going to say, who's this person from Dubai that keeps liking my page? And they're going to go to your page and they're like, oh, she has some interesting things. So now when you send her an email saying, you know, launching my new collection for fall, they're going to have some interest and they're going to open up your email. So this is how you start building some relationships internationally. And here's like a side note too. I do work around the world, and I have noticed one phenomenon. People don't like local designers until they've made it somewhere else. And then they always like to take credit. Oh yeah, I was wearing her when blah, blah, blah. But it's not the case, and it's okay. It's like a common phenomenon. Then you're going to do some regional markets. Then you're going to have your own sales team, you know, whatever country. Then you're going to do some of the major trade shows, and eventually you will have your own showroom. But you can't have all of that if you don't have an online presence. This is very important because this is the first thing I'm going to check out. And please, do not have a fancy website that I have to wait for the flash to load, because I'm not going to do it. I am not going to wait. I have no patience. Think of me as a retarded 3-year-old with attention deficit disorder. That's your typical buyer, and that's me. So you want to have catalogs, you want to have line sheets. Are we familiar with line sheets? Because sometimes, line sheets are very important because, and they don't have to be fancy again. I just want to get to the point. What are you selling me? And how much does it cost? And when am I going to get it? Those are the 3 big questions that a buyer will have for you. So, fashion. I travel abroad and I see a lot of beautiful fashion shows, but I see that they're living in their own bubble. And I know that they teach us in school that you have to kind of have your own unique thing. I'm not saying that, but this is a really key thing. A buyer is looking for something new, but it has to be familiar. You can't be so out there that I cannot know, and this is a common word that a buyer will use, who you hang with. And I'm not talking about your friends. I'm talking about who you hang with as far as my personal store, what would be appropriate location for you. So these are the things. We look at trend reports, we look at consumer shopping behavior, we look at past sales, we look at evolution of a trend. And while I don't have time to talk about all of these, I just want to enforce consumer behavior. Because now, instead of just being designers and artists, we also have to be consumer anthropologists. You have to study why people do what they do. So let's just take for one moment footwear. So let's go back last decade, right? Last decade, everything that was ugly sold, okay? Everything. Crocs sold, right? Even the name is ugly, right? Uggs sold, right? So ugly footwear with ugly names sold. So now we have to think as designers, as anthropologists, why? And if you think of the last decade, it started with chaos, and it just went downhill. It started with Y2K. Anybody remember Y2K, that the computers were going to shut down? I still have ramen noodles, that I was hoarding because the end of the world, right? So, and pockets of money I forgot about. So it started with crisis. Then we had the tsunami, wiped out 100,000 people, the attacks of 9/11, the wars, everything, the SARS, remember? And then avian flu, and we were afraid to eat chicken and go to our malls. Like, we lived in a time of crisis. And in a time of crisis, we seek comfort. And comfort, first place, footwear, right? And then even our clothing, like all the bamboo clothing and everything, got more and more comfortable. So what happened at the beginning of this new decade, right? We went from the yin to the yang. We didn't go to high heels. We went to skyscraper high heels. You remember that? It lasted like 5 minutes, right? Some guy must have come up with those. But anyway, we went the yin and the yang. And now, thank you, Karl Lagerfeld, for your spring collection. Sneakers are appropriate again. So we have to start thinking of like the evolution of a trend. When does it hit critical mass? When does it die? Where do I fit in? So it is about balance. This is just a rough number, but this is what I want you to think about when you're doing your collection. A part of it has to be on trend. You have to have the right color of the season. You have to have the body that I'm looking for as a buyer. Some of it has to be fashion fantasy because that's what gets editorial. That's what gets red carpet. That's what gets people excited. A boring black pant is not going to get editorial. And then the last of it has to be a signature, what you're known for. So think of like Diane von Furstenberg, right? She opens up the show with sequins and feathers and all kinds of craziness, right? Then she goes into trend. She had the black and white trend. She had the peplum trend. She was on trend. And if she doesn't close the show with at least one wrap dress, one dress that she's had in her collection for 40 years, we all feel disappointed, right? So that's kind of the evolution. So getting in the loop, we can buy trend forecasting. I think, isn't WGSN one of the sponsors here? They're the masters of the universe when it comes to predicting, not telling you what's happening, but predicting what's happening in fashion. One of the things we cannot get away with, and it is dictated to us, is color. Like, color comes out almost 18 months ahead. And, I always imagine this. I know that there's a color consult that comes together. I always imagine it's after, like, the G5 summit in Geneva, because it's equally as important, right? They all get together, and it's like the Pantone guys and the cotton guys, and they just randomly pull a color out of the sky. I know that they would argue and say, no, it's very methodological. I don't care. It's random to me. So, but here's the thing. what is it, orchid? Yeah, what is it? The color of the season is something orchid, right? It's everywhere. It's in children's clothes. It's in my towels. It's everywhere. And if you don't have it as a designer, I feel that you don't know what's on trend. So color is a really important way of staying on trend. And this is why when you look at runway shows, and you're like, oh my God, everybody decided to do minimalism this season. It's not because they all got together and had a cup of coffee. They're all reading the same trend reports. So I want to just emphasize how important it is to keep that. So you have to keep it real. I don't want to buy generic, overproduced, mass-produced product. You have to have your own signature. I use these 3 examples because they're so different. We know that first one's Chanel. And anybody that does anything with a trim or with, it's Chanel light, right? Or quilting or anything like that, they own that. The fit of Tom Brown. He looks like a 12-year-old, should be wearing his suit, right? But that's his fit. And by the way, who does he work for? The most conservative suit company on the planet, Brooks Brothers, right? He got a day job. And Pucci. Pucci prints, you could always tell, and they have a very distinct signature. So now you have to ask yourself, what is my signature? What am I known for? So, math. This is, again, I wish I could spend all day explaining to you, but this is how we sell. And when we are going to talk to a department store, or when we're talking to a national retailer, a big store, Galeria Lafayette, before they even look at your product, they want to know how much money they're going to make, how much space you're going to take up in the store, and how quickly you're going to turn it over. And if you can't answer those 3 questions, you're already out of the running. So it's important to understand your math. So when it comes to production, right, this is what they tell us. We're supposed to source our fabrics. And I heard somebody this morning say that they fly to Paris to buy their fabric, to make their samples. Okay. Then you have to make a pattern for it. You have to buy your trims. You have to cut. You have to sew it. You might want to have to grade it too. And this is how we get our samples. This is a long and hard way of doing business. This is great when you're doing something couture, something custom, something bespoke. This is not the way that you're going to start a commercial business. You have to find, and this is where it gets a little challenging, but it's here, right? A full service, or what we call a vertical factory. So being that you're in the Middle East, I would probably have an eye out towards India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China. Yes, I said China, okay? It's okay. And then a lot of designers say, well, I'm selling out. Yes, when did selling out become a bad word? I want you all to sell out, right? I want you all to be the Jeff Koons of design, right? Or what's that Miami guy, the Balletto? I see him on suitcases now. Great, that's a licensing agreement. That guy's making a lot of money. So this is how costing was taught to us, right? It was cost on, actually, see, this is where I messed up. I threw this slide in, sorry. Costing, they would say you take all the cost of your component and your labor, and that's what gave you your cost. But if you cost things that way, and this is, a lot of times designers will say to me, well, I'm selling it to you for this price, and I'm hardly making any money on it because my cost of manufacturing is so high. That is the wrong answer. And then they'll try to give me like a good story. Oh, but this is hand-lubed by Tibetan monks when the moon is full by a rare goat that we could only find in the month of September. Great story. I'm not paying. Oh, you have that story? Okay. I'm not paying for it. I'm not paying for it. We all love a good story, but it has to be value added. And also, it adds to the perception of value, but at the bottom line, you have to know consumer price resistance. So I'm going to kind of explain that to you. So let's say that we all go shopping, we all going on a trip, and we want to buy a sweater for our trip, right? And we go to the store, we try on the sweater, we love it, we feel it, it feels great. And then we look at the price. And all of a sudden, our brain says to us, oh gosh, why is it so expensive? Or that's a fair price. But we didn't wake up saying, I'm going to spend $90 on this sweater, right? That's consumer price resistance. That's how well you have to know your customer. And your customer is not you, and it's not your friends, it's the store. That's who you have to think about it. And that's why it's so important to be kind of like the cyber stalker, because you want to know everything about the store. I never want to hear, like when you approach a store at a trade show or through email or however it is, that they say, no, this is not for me, because that means you didn't do your homework. The only reason they should ever tell you that it's not for them is because you came in too late in the season. You know, and I want to discuss that too, because I feel like there's a lot of questions about that. The consumer's price resistant and not the costing of, oh wait, did I not put a slide in? So maybe I did do it. Okay, just remind me costing, all right, if I didn't put the slide back in. Okay, so when we start doing business with these big department stores, you have to be careful of all of these other things. Chargebacks, markdown money, and I'm talking about the big department stores, the Harrods, the Galeria Lafayette. They're notorious for doing these things. So here's a perfect example. We had a client that Neiman Marcus asked her to be in their Christmas catalog, right? So she was very excited. That's a big deal, a super big deal. And she said, yes, they agreed. They placed a tiny order. Now, this is a higher end brand or a designer, and really Neiman Marcus buys just as much or smaller amount than an average boutique. And what they do, even though they have 7 stores that would hang in this price point, they share one dress, one size throughout all the stores. So if I go to Neiman Marcus in New York, they might say, oh no, it's in Neiman Marcus in Beverly Hills, and we'll ship it to you for free. That's kind of how they work. So the whole order that they had placed with this designer was $3,000. But she was, it's okay, it's a small order, it's all right. I'm in the Christmas catalog. And after the Christmas catalog dropped, guess what? She got a letter from them saying that she now owed them $10,000. She owed them money because that's what it cost to be in the Neiman Marcus catalog. She did not read the fine print on her order. So we have to be very, very aware of all of the contracts because that's what they are, right? Your orders are contracts. So talking a little bit about everything, as a buyer, so it does become the chicken and the egg. It is important for you to have some credentials that you have done, some promotions, some advertising, maybe some exposure like that. It does mean something to me. But again, as a sophisticated buyer that understands the emerging designer, I don't really expect it from you. But I will ask you, what are you doing as far as your marketing and your PR? And you better have an answer for me about that. So I love to use this example. Does anybody remember them, Heatherette? Okay, so for those of you that, they had like 5 minutes worth of fame, right? So these 2 guys, Randy and Travis, they were New York City club promoters. So in all the big clubs, they did all the big parties. They were in charge of the VIP list. So every time a celebrity came, they had to go through them to get into the VIP area, right? So one day, Randy and Travis woke up. This is what I'm picturing in my own head, right? Like I don't know them. But anyway, in my own head, they woke up and they said, hey, Randy, hey, Travis, today we're fashion designers. Like, it's easy, right? Everybody does it. And everybody loves the way that we dress, so we're fashion designers. So not having any money, not having any industry know-how, they go to the thrift store, they buy a few dresses, right? They buy a few T-shirts, they cut them up, they sew them together, and then they call all of their friends. Naomi Campbell, Paris Hilton, Amanda Lepore, who is a very famous transgender. Let's do a fashion show in the most fabulous club because we're the promoters, right, of the club. Let's have the best DJ. Let's have David LaChapelle do our lookbook, right? Do we know him? It's like $100,000 for a sitting with him, right? Because he's a friend. We gave him a bottle, you know, last time he was at the VIP. They did these spectacular fashion shows with all the bells and whistles that you can imagine for 3 seasons. They had the attention of everybody. But here's the punchline. They could not produce a single garment. Patricia Fields loved one of their things. They put them on Sex and the City. It was like a big hit. Some Chinese company copied them. So, sidebar. You should learn to copy yourself before somebody else does. And somebody else will. There's always going to be somebody with more money, more smart, and faster to market than you are ever going to be. So for those designers that are really like afraid, like my designs are going to be copied, they're going to be copied. Be comfortable with it. And a lot of them spend like overtime, they spend too much time like trying to patent a design. Here's my example. Christian Louboutin, right? He had a patent for the red sole, right? Are we familiar with this case? Yves Saint Laurent used the red sole in one of their shoes. You know, Christian got a little pissy about it, took him to court, and guess what? He lost. He lost the patent of the red shoe. And now, you know, I would think that Christian Louboutin didn't have some like dime store lawyer that did his patent. He had a professional lawyer that knew all the things. But here's the other important part. It has to be industry specific. So you cannot get the lawyer that did a nice job with your divorce or the lawyer that did a nice transaction with your real estate when you bought the house, right? It has to be somebody specific to the industry so that they know that when you patent a color, you actually need a Pantone number. And it can't just be the red that I like. And that's exactly what Christian said in court. It was the red that I like. So now Heatherette, they're famous, they have all this press, they've been on TV, every celebrity's wearing them, everybody's talking about them. They cannot rub two nickels together to make a collection that is sellable at retail. And then an investment company comes and says, we want to buy the name Heatherette for $8 million. I want to just emphasize, they never made a single product. They sold a brand for $8 million. Now here's the funny part. When you're broke, $8 million is all the money in the world. So I remember reading that in Women's Wear Daily, and I'm like, this is nothing. This is just a drop in the bucket. First of all, there's two partners, right? So you know that Uncle Sam, because they're American, the taxes, they get 50%. So it's really $4 million, right? And from $4 million, there's two partners, so it's really $2 million each. And then the bad lawyer that they had that made them sign he agreed to an agreement that said, you can never compete, like a non-compete clause, forever. Even, I don't know, like back to my retarded niece, she would know not to do that, right? So, yes, so $2 million less the lawyer's fees is really like $1 million, right? So now we're down to $1 million. And when you're a crackhead, that's no money, right? Okay, so end the story. Don't do drugs. So you have to have real industry professionals help you with all of these things. If they had somebody that knew the business, they would have said, we're not selling the name, we're licensing the name. We're going to license it to a denim company for $8 million. We're going to license it to a children's company for $4 million. And it would have grown organically that way. And they would have always stayed on as creative directors. They would have had a salary plus the royalties that come with it, right? Which is a brilliant situation to be in. Meanwhile, the investment company bought it, they sold it, or they partnered with a production company, mass-produced the line, launched it at Henry Bendel's, which was this department store that was really kind of degrading at the time. And they thought that they would have like this really cool brand in there, and it would like dust it off and everybody would think it was cool again. It was a disaster. They went back, they tried to sell it to the boutiques, right, in the boutique business, and the boutiques were like, that was 5 minutes ago, like we're not interested anymore. And it died. It died within a year. That's our industry. So it is important to have some kind of editorial placement. Again, I'm not a big fan of celebrity placement. Everybody thinks that, listen, I don't care that Beyonce wore it. I just want to know what your sell-through was at the store. And I want to know how much money I made. And I feel like that's the more practical way of looking at things. You want to look for fashion shows, again, for the photography and sponsorship. So here's the big question. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? It all kind of happens at the same time. I'm going to put them all up there so you can kind of look at that. The most important part, and this is the other thing too, you don't, and this is very hard for a designer to understand, but you can't only design the things that you like. You have to design the things that are sellable. And again, I see everybody taking pictures. It's so much easier if you give me your card. I'll give you the slides, and then you can just listen to what I'm saying. Okay, so you want to be able to do your homework thoroughly. I want you, so when it comes up to like questions, so now I'll talk about costing because I didn't put the slide in. You want to know what your competition, who you hang with, price points are. So right now in the contemporary dress market in the United States, $398 is the magic retail price. So if I look at Tibby and Millie and Nanette Lepore and all of those contemporary kind of brands, that's their magic price point. So that's, now I have to make the decision, is that the price I want to be at? So now that I know that, I know what things have to cost me. So we're going to actually work it backwards, right? And I'm also, when I'm looking at the stores that I want to sell to, I'm also going to see how many dresses for $398 do they sell? Do they just sell one dress, or is it the bulk of the collection? Because anybody could have one odd dress, but if that's the highest dress sell point that they have in the store, maybe that's not the store that I want to sell to. Because you don't want to be the most expensive in a moderate store. You want to be the cheapest in a really good store. That's also another theory, but you know, that's open to discussion. So once you know what the retail price is, we have to figure out what the margin, how much money the retailer wants to make. So usually a retailer will want to make between 2.3, like minimum, 2.3 markup. So you, as a new designer, because remember, you're competing, I already know at the beginning of the season that I need to spend $10,000 on scarves. right? And now you're a scarf designer. I don't know who you are. It's in the middle of the season and you're presenting yourself to me. I don't have any money left for you. But if in the beginning of the season, right, you come to me and say, hey, Mercedes, I'm going to launch the collection for fall, which launches in February, right? I'm going to launch in fall, but here's my line sheets. Here are my price points. I want you to save some money for me. Most likely, if I like it, I will save the money. But remember, you have to give me a reason to buy you too. What's the emotional connection? Well, my scarves are handmade in India by, tribal women who actually, this is how they fund the education for their daughters. Great. I love the story. I'm not paying for the story, but I love the story, right? Now it gives you a little angle or a little something, emotional connection beyond that. But now the next question is, I have to take somebody out. So the first thing as a buyer, I'm going to look at who I'm not making money. But if you come to me and say, listen, Mercedes, I know that you're making a 2.3 on all your scarf vendors. I hang with these. Actually, I have higher quality than some of these guys, but you're going to make a 2.5 deal. Because I didn't even see one scarf yet, but based on what you're telling me, I'm going to make more money. You have the quality of the people I already have. I'm interested now. And this is how you have to learn to talk to them. So now we know what the wholesale price is. Usually, as a rule of thumb, what I'm recommending is from wholesale to cost, your cost price has to be at least 3 times. So I know a lot of you are like, well, I'm small and I'm new and I'm not getting the right price. You can't, that's not an excuse. You have to get the price that you deserve to be competitive. If not, you will always stay small. That's the fact. So again, one of the examples, we have a designer from Haiti and he makes the most beautiful crocodile bags. But the bags, they're not cheap to make, even in Haiti, right? They're $500 to make. He was wholesaling them for $800, right? So what buyer is not going to buy them because they're usually 3 times that much money, right? And the buyers in their stores were selling them, I think the price was, let me see, 8, 16. They were selling them for $2,200, right? So they were making crazy amounts of money on the bags, but it was still the cheapest crocodile bag in the industry, right? Because he did his price study. The retailers knows what a Nancy Gonzales is going for, right? So that's who you compare with. And the buyers were getting a bargain. So now he's been out there, he's selling 40 stores, he's doing well, they reorder, they sell out when he sells it to the store. And now he decides it's time to get the right price because his marketing idea of using a lost leader, because that's what it's called, I'm not making money on it, I'm just getting it out there, my name out there, failed. Because all of those stores that were buying it were angry now that they weren't making the crazy amount of money that they were on the brand. They were abusing him. He let them be abused. This is your job. It's opportunity. And I would just want to be frank about this. Nobody is your friend in this business. Nobody. Not even your friend, okay? Even your sister, your cousin, your mother, especially mom, because moms love us, and every little crap that we design and show them, they're going to say, oh, this is the best thing, right? Because you're their son and daughter. You have to be practical. You have to go out there and really look at what your competition is. So concept art, I still am a big believer. You could do it on Pinterest, you could do it, but you have to have a concept. And I feel like once you start collecting all of your ideas and inspirations and trends, you're going to find your own common denominator. So then we're going to do the sourcing. And again, you have to outsource. Again, I feel like India is probably, because of the embroidery that I've seen here and a lot of the silks that I've seen, is probably a good idea. So go to, next week, I'll be in India if anybody's coming. There's the big silk fair, the silk fair in Delhi. So that's where you go, discover, talk to the factories. So here's the thing. So now you know that you need to get a 3-time markup. Here's the number one mistake I feel like a lot of designers make. Two things. First, they go to a tailor to get their sample made. The way that a tailor or a sample house makes a sample is perfect. You will never get perfect in production. And I feel like this is the hiccup that a lot of designers have too. They're always waiting for the perfect sample. And here's the thing. Take the word perfect out of your vocabulary. There's no such thing as perfect. It's sellable. If it's sellable, and here's the thing, you are always going to have the most critical eye. Oh, but the French seam is twisted here. Oh, it doesn't matter. Is it sellable? And you know how you give yourself a reality check? Go to the department stores and see what's hanging and see the quality. And I'm sure all of you have said the same thing. Oh my God, my quality is so much better. Yeah, but he's selling and you're not. That's the whole point. You have to be sellable and not perfect. So I'm not a fan of going to the sample maker. I'm not a fan of going to the sample house to get my sample made. I like making my samples in the factory that's going to make my production. So now I go to the factory, and in the conversation around the world is going to be the same. And this is the mistake all the buyers make, all the brands make, the designers make. They ask, how much does it cost to make? Oh, can you make this tunic for me? How much is it going to cost to make? The minute you ask the factory, they already know that you don't know, and they will take advantage of you. They will charge whatever they feel like charging you at that moment because you don't know. And then they'll say something like, oh, but we can negotiate quantities. No, we're going to negotiate the quantities right now. So this is where we have to put our big boy pants on, right? We have to be a little aggressive, a little tough, a little assertive, a little bit of confidence, right? And we have to say, you know what? I want this tunic made for $10. Even though you know, because you did the math, you could probably afford $15, but we're going to start at 10. And universally, around the world, everybody's going to say the same thing. No, it can't be done. What are you, crazy? This is not some Chinese sweatshop, even though you might be in a Chinese sweatshop, but that's what they're going to tell you. This is not, right? And you're going to say, well, listen, somebody's making it. You know, I'm already doing my production locally, whether it be Saudi Arabia, whether it be Dubai, wherever it is. I have small productions, but we're growing every single day. The internet, look at my Pinterest account, look at my Instagram account. We're getting all of these orders, and I'm just nervous that I cannot max out capacity at my little factory, so I need to go to a second solution, and I picked you, but if you can't work with me, I'm fine with that too. And walk away. And 2 seconds later, he's going to call you back. And it's going to be like a tango. You know, the tango, you take a step, he takes a step. It's like dating. I like you, I don't like you that much. That's what it's going to be, right? So we have already had some practice with all of that. Now we're going to apply it to the factory. But at the end of the day, and this is where you have to be really, really assertive, you cannot afford what you can't afford. So if the maximum was $15, you can't give in to 16 or 17. Because everything that we do, and this is really important, everything we do, the sole purpose of it is to make money. Not for branding, not for getting our name out. Because again, what was my first slide? All of these great names that have so much. I promise you, look, we work with plenty of CFDA designers who we all know their names, their household names, and they might sell Bergdorf Goodman, but that's the only store that they're selling, and they're all in terrible, distressed situations. And we're working with lawyers to help them all get like a day job because they can't pay the rent. They're fabulous, but can't pay the rent. So you have to develop your communications, how you're going to work with the factories. Your first sample is going to be done from the factories, and please don't cry. And then you're going to be frustrated and stamp your feet and like, I could have done this better myself. Yes, but that's the whole point. What was the mantra? How do I work as little as possible for the most amount of money? So we have to start delegating and letting go. That's, I think, a big thing with designers too. So, and here's like, in a little nutshell, I'm kind of running out of time, but I just want to tell you this. There is a system that I want you to follow, and it's called a cut-to-order position, which means, right, that you're going to get orders. So let's just start with next season, right? So next season in February is the official, in the United States, right? Europe always starts a little bit earlier than us, but let's just say the United States, because there's, did I mention 70,000 boutiques, right? So let's just go that way. So in the United States, we start market in February. Men's is in January, but typically February. So in February, we're showing fall 2015. So you have February, March, and April to collect orders, right? From all of the stores that you're soliciting, sending them samples, maybe visiting them, whatever it is, right? You're going to get your orders for 3 months. So February, March, and April. May and June, you're going to go into production. So you have 2 full months to produce. You ship it to a distributor sometime in July, and it gets to the store in August. You have enough time. So now, when do you know to go into production? If we're already marking up from wholesale, from cost to wholesale 3 times, and the factory tells you you need to make 300 of this dress for us to give you the $15 price, then you really only need to sell 100 units, right? 100 units, and that 100 units has paid for the other 200 units. So that means you'll be in an inventory position with positive cash flow. And now you're able to do consignments. And listen, to me, consignment is a 4-letter word. It's a bad word. Like, I don't do it. But if it's Barney that says, I want to try you out for a trunk show or an event or whatever, and we're not paying for it, but it's going to be on wheels, it's Barney's. I would do it. Like these flagships, right? Like some of these, even website guys that are real flagships that are international, because it's branding, it's advertising. And the best part, it's already paid for. So even if they mark it down and sell it for $1, you didn't lose money. It's not the margins that we want to make, but it gives you enough money to go into production the next season. And that's what you want to be able to do. So I hope that I was kind of clear with that. So we're going to write our orders, hit the break even, fill our cutting ticket. So now that's the order that we're going to give our factories. We're going to fund the production. So that's a nice way of saying you need to fork up some money, right? So here's another big question. People say, well, you know, how much money do I need? How much capital? The greatest investment you need is 3 parts. Making your samples, which could be as expensive or not as, the range is so great. It could be $30, it could be $300. The next is doing your sales. I don't advise to do a trade show in the beginning, but emails and those kinds of campaigns, it's free. It's just basically your time and following up. But the biggest chunk of money goes into production. And here's the best news I could give you today. The last, I would say 5 years, there hasn't been a better time to be an emerging designer than right now. Because the world, not the United States, the world is hungry for something new. And the investors are tired of investing in Wall Street because Wall Street is giving them a 1% return. And these investors are now looking for these small investments that have quick returns. So I'm using the word investor loosely. They're really a bunch of loan sharks, right? But we already have that margin built into there. We're not paying a salesman, so we can afford the 10, the 15, the 20% that they're asking. But if you show them orders, let your biggest problem be that you have too many orders that you can't fund yourself. Because an investor will be there to bankroll that. And you show an investor, listen, I'm making a 3-time margin. I'm selling to some legitimate stores who are paying me on credit card terms. There's going to be a line of people waiting to fund you. So you're going to receive, and this is another thing too, that it sounds like fun to receive all the stuff at our mom's garage or at our home and have like a party with our friends and pack boxes. It's not so much fun. And it's not very professional too. So my concept is from the beginning, you think about having a distribution center, especially like if you're going to have one in London for European sales, one in New York for American sales, you need to have a distribution center that's going to receive the goods, pack, ship, and invoice them for you. You're going to invoice the retailer, you're going to collect your payments, and you're going to follow up. All at the same time. Did I say that? Okay. So, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Empty pockets never stopped anyone from achieving their dreams. Only empty hearts and empty minds can do that. Thank you for your time. My name is Mercedes Gonzales, and that's my information. Whew. So it's open to questions, right?
For new designers, because you were saying there needs to be like a cultural revolution coming, or like you can kind of feel something is on its way, but it's not here yet. Where would you advise someone as a new designer to position themselves in the market? Because at the designer level, there's already the major big houses who have huge budgets and can produce amazing things. Then you've got the high street and mid-market like Zara and all these brands who can give you the look, but at an affordable price. So where do you see the most opportunity for a new designer?
You know, that's a great question. I think what you're asking me is what price point, right?
Yeah, price point, and
right now, so the magic price point is contemporary pricing. I think that there's not enough market, not enough for the retailers to buy contemporary price point and advanced contemporary price point. But if you're talking about micro niches, as far as development of a brand and the emotion behind it, there's a couple of really open markets, and one of them is plus sizes. And you know, it used to be just an American phenomenon, but it's not anymore. And this woman, you know, she has a lot of money, she has disposable income. So I think that that's an under-retailed market, plus sizes. I also feel that baby boomers, as a country in the United States, 1/3 of the population, which is 100 million people, are over the age of 60. And this woman, you know, think of Madonna, right? She's dating a 25-year-old. You know, she's 55 years old. She's in good shape. She travels. She's the hippie from the 60s. Like, who's addressing this woman's needs? And she's still working, which is kind of important. But it's true in Italy, it's true in Germany, it's true in London. So a lot of these countries have this older, very sophisticated woman that doesn't want to dress like the dowdy grandma too. So there's a lot of opportunities, just really trying to find that emotional pull that you can get with your brand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you mentioned the example of the designer who kept lower margins in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then decided to, was his mistake that he didn't kind of hike up the prices slowly? Was that what you would have recommended him to do?
So the question is about the guy with the handbags, right?
Yes.
My advice would have been to price it at what it deserves to be priced at. Like everything we do is the purpose of making money, not for marketing. So if the market share was $900 wholesale, that's what he should have been at. Not like 300 today, 400 next week. Like the buyers get tired of that too. Like it should be what it is. And then, but you have to make a personal decision too. Do I want to be the highest one in the market? Like, you know, Nancy Gonzales bags, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a brand out of Colombia. They're $20,000. You know, like who determined that? Because it's not really, so here's the bottom line. It's not what it costs you to make, it's what people are willing to pay for something. You know, that's what I think is the important thing. Okay, so the question is, what if the designer doesn't have the business mindset, right? So here's I didn't give you my speech about partners. I hate partners. And I think at the panel, one of the panelists made a really good point that you could find money, but if you're just going to get an investor to take a share of your company, it should bring something to the table too. So you can outsource the business part. You can outsource CEOs, and you can outsource companies that are going to do your brand strategy. All of that is actually out there for you.